Coach, if you haven't taken the time to reflect on what you're changing for next season, now's the time, because what you don't fix is likely going to pop up again exactly when you don't want it to. After winning 4 state championships myself over the past 4 seasons, I have found that success doesn't fix the gaps. It just hides the problems until the pressure hits. And leaving things like the mental game, culture, and leadership to chance is bound to leave you frustrated at the end of the season, potentially again. Now, I'm diving into the 3 things that I'm tightening up in my culture, leadership, and mental game, even after a championship season, really what I'm focusing on, and the 3 things that I think you should too, no matter how you ended last season. So let's get into it. These 3 big buckets around culture, leadership, and the mental game. I know these are enormous things, but I'm going to be breaking down one thing for each category that you can be focusing on as you head into next season. Now, before I do, I want to give a shout out to a mom. This is a little bit of a different shout out because this is a mom who is a mom of an athlete inside my program. So she sent me this email at the end of our season last season. She said this: "What a thrilling win. I'm so happy for you and the girls who have all worked so hard to keep fighting in the midst of seemingly unsurmountable odds. The team's mental strength was truly admirable and a key difference maker in the match. I'm so happy I got to witness it." Now, this is pretty cool. What I love about this email is that this mom recognized, like, wow, the way in which you won, your team won in this championship match really highlighted the mental training that went on. And I'm going to be talking about that match a little bit because honestly, to this day, and I'm like, I don't know, 7 months removed from it at this point, I still am like, how did that happen? And I also am so thankful that I equipped my team with mental training skills that they used and leaned on in that match, because the whole season I was like, is this working? Is it making a difference? Yes, we're doing mental training, but I'll tell you in the next section on like the first thing that I'm going to tighten up, I did get a little bit lazy with it at times. I gave them the minimum and some really tangible tools to use. And those are the tools that they actually had to use when it mattered most. Like, the way in which we won was truly remarkable. So I'll talk about what those tools were kind of in this next section. But again, thankful that I didn't skip out on these things so that my athletes actually had ways to manage the pressure of that championship match and come back and win in the way that they did. So, and also it's nice to get a parent email that's positive every once in a while. All right, let's get into it. The first big bucket that I'm going to talk about is the mental game. Because let's be honest, if your players can't handle pressure, bounce back from mistakes, or stay focused when things get tough, it really does not matter how good they are. Like, that stuff is going to take over. And coaching the X's and the O's and the strategy and the game plan, like all of that, you know how to do. When I became a coach 14 years ago, of course, I've gotten better at that side of the game as well. But like, that's why I got hired, is because I knew volleyball. Okay. They don't teach you like the mental game, the culture, the leadership, but those are really the things that are the difference makers when it matters most. I have coached very talented teams who did not go as far as they quote unquote should have. And I've also coached talented teams that did. Okay. And the difference was that we weren't training the mental side of the game for so long. And I was losing in ways that could only point to the fact that I was not training that, right? We would fall apart. We'd blow leads. We would get really nervous. We would play timid. We would start tipping instead of being aggressive. Those are all mental errors. And when I started training the mental game, it made a big difference when it came to my teams and showing up. In the state championship match that I, just touched on in a second ago, it was night and day kind of what I saw as far as how they were able to handle the pressure. We were down championship point, okay? Meaning that the other team was serving for the championship. They hadn't won state in 36 years. And when you look on paper, they were a much better team than we were, okay? So I honestly was kind of reciting like, all right, the second place speech, not so bad, okay? Here we are. We ended up getting that point, okay? And now we were going back to serve. So if you know volleyball, you got to win by 2. Because we got that point, we tied it up, and now we had to win by 2 to stay alive. So they lost their opportunity to seal the deal just on that point. We go back, the athlete that was serving is actually her mom was the one I just gave a shout out to. She goes back, she serves. The other team, they set their best hitter and she hit it out of bounds. And I was like, oh, well, that doesn't typically happen, right? This D1 hitter, she's a D1 commit, hitting out of bounds. Okay, so the nerves are getting to her a little bit, okay? Now we are serving again, and if we get this point, we stay alive for a 5th set, okay? So we serve, we get this point because the other team kind of botches the play and sends a free ball into the net, which is like a really easy ball. Typically doesn't happen. So I got to watch this other team like mentally fall apart while my team in this, in the midst of unsurmountable odds, right? We were down as much as you could be. Battle back, stay calm, stay composed. When I talked to that player who was serving, she was like, I was just doing my snapback routine. I was doing my breath. I was doing my reset word. This is something that I thankfully prioritized teaching last season, was at least this, a snapback routine that they could use. Okay. And so that just makes it clear for me that when I am telling myself as a coach, I don't have time to teach the mental side of the game. Okay. Or my team just needs more reps. It's like, this actually does not take as much time as you need. I'm talking 20 minutes. I don't have more to give on the mental side of the game than 20 minutes a week. And so using that 20 minutes a week, and sometimes I break it up over the course of, 3 or 4 days, but 20 minutes a week is what I carve out. And this next season, I'm going to be very intentional with 20 minutes a week where we're dialing in our mental game. Okay. I did the minimum last season to make sure that they had a snapback routine, and made sure we did our daily mindset routine, the 3-2-1 brave. We visualized before every practice, before every game. But I'm going to dial more into some of these things around self-talk, more of these things around body language and teammate dynamics. All of these things are inside our program, Plug and Play Elite Mental Game. It's the same thing that I use with my team, and also that hundreds of high school teams across the nation are using with their team to easily and quickly train the mental side of the game. You do not need to be a sports psychologist to teach these skills. I'm not. Okay. I am a certified mental performance coach, but you don't have to be. I've created this so that it's very simple for you. So if you want to learn about the Plug and Play Elite Mental Game, this is how I train my team in 20 minutes or less a week. I lay it all out in my free training for coaches. It's if you go to coachfreetraining.com, you can register. Find out exactly how I do it and how you can incorporate this into your season as well. Again, I don't have time. I don't know how to teach it. My team just needs more reps. Like, a lot of the times those are just excuses, and you're going to spend the time either way. When it comes to mental training, it actually doesn't take a lot of time. You get out more than you put in when it comes to this type of training, because now you're not wasting time like trying to coach the emotions of the game, right? You're not wasting time trying to get players' heads back in the game. They have a snapback routine that they can use. Okay. You're not that coach on the sideline that's like telling them to shake it off and it's not working. And you can't be in all of your athletes' heads all the time. Like, they need the skills out there that they can rely on. So you actually save time when you invest like at least, or at most 20 minutes a week, so that these athletes have these skills. And honestly, my players love it. They tell me all the time, like, they're so thankful that they actually have time to like be present, to, kind of sort the things that are going on in their minds, like just giving them very simple tools to manage the pressure of the game, because it's going to be more pressure next season anyways. And, winning 4 straight titles makes the target on our back very big. Okay. There's no one that wants to see us lose more than the teams that we beat last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. Like, people don't want to see the big dogs keep winning. They want to be the team that dethrones us. Okay. I know that sounds weird to say, but it's true. So we're going to get every team's best. We got a big target on our back. The pressure is big. There's a lot of pressure for these girls that are coming back, but also the new ones that are coming in to defend titles that honestly they weren't even part of. So I have to prioritize being able to teach them how to mentally respond to that pressure and mentally kind of sort through the limiting beliefs that are going to come up as a result of some of this pressure. Okay. So mental training has to be a non-negotiable for me. That's one thing that I'm really tightening up next season, is that I'm committing to that, like 20 minutes a week. Okay. All right. The next big bucket is culture. So last season, I would say like our culture was pretty good, but that was also because we had really experienced leaders. We had leaders. We had captains who had been a part of the program for 4 years, who had been on varsity for 3 or 4 years. And so it was pretty established, and they had a lot of reps when it came to leadership. The leaders that are coming in this season are upperclassmen. There's not very many of them. I think I only have one returning senior. Haven't had a lot of opportunities for leadership because there's been people ahead of them. And they're not natural leaders in the sense that you would think, right? That doesn't mean that they're not leaders, but they're not like the loud ones. They're not the ones that are going to like speak up. So there's a lot of leadership that needs to be trained. And I also know that there's potential for a lot of personality conflicts and drama that could happen inside our culture just by adding 7 new players and what I'm seeing coming through. Okay. I know that I'm talking a little bit in generalities. Okay. But to be honest, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little nervous about our teammate dynamics that are going to be happening next season. And that's why I know that, like, if I'm not intentional with creating culture and connection early, it's going to bite me down the road. Because if you've been coaching for any amount of time, you notice that there's a little bit of a cycle. Like, when you start a season, there's a lot of excitement around it. People are on quote unquote their best behaviors because they're trying to earn a starting spot, and everything's happy and good and people are competing. And then, you get through that first game jamboree. And then for us, it's like we then announce roles and all of that. And then we deal with people maybe not liking their role or accepting their role. Then the drama starts to bubble up a little bit because people are, if they're not confident in themselves, start to tear other people down. And then it kind of snowballs from there. Okay. And so to think that, everything's just going to be hunky dory because the season starts out pretty good is very short-sighted because the season always starts out good. All right. And so let's be honest with ourselves as coaches that if we're not intentional, that we can quickly get derailed fast. So for me, what I'm going to really double down on are our open circle meetings. I do have a video on this. So if you want to check it out, it's called, I think it's called the weekly open circle meetings. And this is just a way for my team to connect. And it's a way that has really, I wouldn't say eliminated, but reduced the amount of team drama that we have because when players are able to connect with each other, and it's really just a set of simple prompts that we go through as a team to do like a 5-minute check-in once a week. And so we talk about our highs, our lows, or sometimes we will do something like a hero hardship highlight situation. So I explain all of that in that other video, but it allows us to be a little bit vulnerable with each other, allows athletes to build trust with one another. And when they have that, they're going to play more connected and more free next to each other. So that as well as individual athlete check-ins, because if athletes don't have an opportunity to ask questions, if they don't have an opportunity to know where they stand, then they start to create stories in their heads and that snowballs into drama. Okay. So I'm really going to make sure I'm intentional when it comes to culture I know I said I was going to do one major thing in each bucket, but this is 2, our weekly open circle team meetings. And then also just those individual meetings. We do them bi-weekly so that athletes can count on them. And the other thing though, is that when it comes to culture, I have found that athletes who are more confident are not as likely to cause drama. And so when we start with making sure that we're training the mental side of the game and we are training their confidence, so, they know that who they are is not tied to their performance. They know what their individual goals are. They're visualizing those goals. They have a way to snap back from mistakes so they're not snapping at other people. We find that athletes, when we prioritize confidence and mental strength, they're actually more confident in themselves and they're less likely to cause a bunch of drama. So that also benefits our culture when we start with that. So just another reason why that 20 minutes or less that you're spending on the mental side of the game and confidence actually has a ripple effect on the rest of your culture. Okay. And then finally in this area of leadership. So I mentioned this a little bit, but last season, I just kind of named captains because it was obvious who they were going to be. I also kind of assumed they knew what that meant. But leadership is so elusive, especially when it comes to high schoolers, right? We want it. And what we say as leadership is maybe clear to us, but it's not clear to a 15, 16, 17-year-old. Okay. And when it doesn't show up, we get frustrated. When I'm like, hey, why aren't you speaking up? It's because I probably haven't told them that they should or need to do that. But honestly, that's on us. And so this season, I'm going to do a couple of things differently. I'm going to choose captains ahead of time, meaning I'm not going to wait until the season to start to pick my captains. We're going to choose them early. We're going to go through a captain selection process where players are not just voting on who they want to be the captain so that it's like a popularity contest, but there's criteria. There's 7 questions I'm going to have them go through. I'm going to have them, I'm going to have the program write down a name for each of these 7 categories, who best represents CR volleyball, who shows the most inclusivity, these qualities that your program has, create questions around those and then ask your program who best represents these qualities of our program best. And out of that, I'm going to select my captains. I'm also going to ask who's interested in being a captain, right? Because not everybody does. And not everyone who leads needs to be a captain is what I'm trying to say. So I also want to know who is up for the job and not just assuming that everybody wants to be that. The other thing that I'm going to try a little different this year is our leadership core. I'm going to be assigning specific leadership roles to people, captains and non-captains. So things like the energy leader, the culture keeper, the equipment something. I haven't totally fleshed out what my roles are going to be, but this helps our leaders know what's expected of them. We can't expect every single leader to be the communication specialist, right? The one that's speaking up. We have to acknowledge that leaders have different strengths and we also have different needs in our program. So I'm going to be listing out probably a list of 6 leadership titles These aren't necessarily all, well, I think they are mostly leadership related, but it's little things like, person who's in charge of like the bench behavior, the hype woman, the energy girl, like those type of things, so that, and then make it really clear, like, what does that look like? What are the actual duties of the bench behavior monitor or whatever? I'm going to come up with like better names for this, but this is just a rough draft, so that my leaders know what's expected, and they also have tangible ways to demonstrate their leadership. So those are some things I'm going to try a little different in this whole leadership category, just knowing that I have a lot of work to do when it comes to my upcoming leaders. All right. The other thing about leaders, and why, again, mental training makes such a big difference, is that I don't know for you, but for me, I've had leaders in the past who are not the most mentally strong. So they're maybe the captain or they're the upperclassmen. Everyone's looking to them. But when they make a mistake, they are turning their back on the team, or they're like getting really down on themselves. And then the energy of the whole team takes on the energy of that person, which is really frustrating, because it's like, you're the captain. You need to be able to like be composed and respond to this in the right way. And so I find that if my leaders are the ones that have the strongest mental game and are the most confident, that is kind of the personality that the rest of my team takes on. And why it's so important, like when I'm in doing leadership training with my leaders and with my captains, that I'm making sure that they're very aware of what their body language is communicating, that they're very aware of their response to mistakes and the need to use their snapback routine and the mental training skills that we are teaching them. So when it comes to mental training, yes, I'm doing it with my whole program, but I'm really making sure that my leaders are super hyper involved in it. So I'm actually giving tasks to my leaders as well when it comes to mental training. So if we're talking plug and play, elite mental game for teams, this 20 minutes a week that we do, there's discussion questions. There's like 1 or 2 discussion questions that come after the videos. And again, these videos are like 3 to 15 minutes long. They're very short. I'm going to have my leaders lead those. I'm going to make sure that they're invested in them and that they are leading the charge when it comes to it, so that they're hopefully making sure that they're the ones that are really internalizing this and making sure that they're walking the walk, walking the talk. Okay. And so I'm going to give them the discussion question. I'm going to have them lead some of that so that they really are invested in the mental training as well. And if you want to, again, know more about the Plug and Play Elite Mental Game for Teams, how we do mental training, how you can get your leaders involved in that, go to coachfreetraining.com. Again, this is probably the best investment that you can make for your season as you head into a new season, because it does have that ripple effect. Training the mental game, confidence, is going to impact your culture. It's going to impact your leaders. Okay. It's going to impact those moments where you're wishing that your leaders would step up. If you're wishing that your players could bounce back from mistakes faster. You're tired of coaching the emotional side of the game, right? You're already wasting a lot of time in that area. So might as well dedicate some time to be proactive about it. So coachfreetraining.com is where you can go to check out all of that and how you can prioritize that for your coming season. All right, to kind of wrap up, even after 4 state titles, I'm heading into next season. Number one, feeling a little nervous, feeling the pressure. I'll be honest, I feel a lot of pressure. And I'm still going to be prioritizing 3 things when it comes to next season. The mental game, and making sure that I'm prioritizing that 20 minutes a week to give them the mental skills that they need. I'm going to be prioritizing culture by way of open circle meetings once a week with my team, bi-weekly individual meeting check-ins with my players, and then leadership. I'm going to be changing up how I select my leaders, doing it a little early, making sure that we're doing it based on the values that we want to see in our program. And then I'm also going to be including my leaders more in the mental training of our team, because I want my leaders to be the mentally strongest and the most confident, because that's what the rest of my team is going to follow. Okay, that's what I have for you. Coaches, again, head to coachfreetraining.com if you want to get the full game plan on how to do this with your team. And I will see you in the next episode.